Hi everyone. So this video is going to be part 2 of the Crackle Candle softly spoken whisper video. So I'm going to try to remember where we left off and take it from there. First though, I've moved the Crackle Candle a little bit further away from the camera and the microphone, so it's now sitting behind me. Hopefully that means it's going to be a little quieter and more of a background noise for the video. So I will light the candle to start with. So I'll just get the lighter, take off the lid and light the candle. It generally starts a little louder, and as it burns for a little while, the noise should become a little bit quieter. But just enjoy the sound of the crackle for the moment. So in my last whisper, softly spoken Crackle Candle Storytime video, where we left off was, I think, 1994, and that's when I moved back to New South Wales, to the Sydney area with my family. And for a while, like I was saying, we lived in a hotel, like a motel hotel place, and that was until we found a house in early 1994. We moved there and I started a new primary school. So I'd moved quite a lot before then, as you all know, and this was the last primary school that I went to, and I started there in year 4, was my first year there. So I don't have a lot of memories from that time, from when I was in primary school, even from when I was in high school. And I don't know why. It's just, I think from moving around so much, and because it was such a long time ago now, I have a hard time remembering things, at least just trying to remember things at random. If I see photos again, like I said, or I'm talking to somebody and they may remember, it's easier for me to remember the stories, but I'll do my best. And if I remember anything else that might be interesting, I might share it in the non-Crackle Candle version, which I'll record as well. So 1994. I was 9 and I would have been turning 10, but at the end of the year. So I was in year 4 at primary school. This was the first time where I'd started at a school and knew that I would be there for the rest of the time that I would be at primary school, essentially. I knew that we weren't planning on moving for quite a while, or if we did, it wouldn't be far. So I made some friends, and some of them ended up going to high school with me, and some of them I still speak to occasionally now, but not too many. So in '94, I think it was '93, where I told the story about I was going to Disneyland when I was younger. I think that was it was either '93 or '94, where we went to Disneyland, and it may have been '94, very early '94. I can check, but I'm pretty sure. We went to Anaheim, Disneyland, and that was the first time I'd ever been. I remember the plane was so big and I couldn't sleep. I was awake the whole time for most of it, except for something that I'll get to soon, but I couldn't sleep, and I went up the back of the plane with my dad, and back then at the back of the plane there was a large window. I remember looking out the window, and the flight attendants, they made me a cup of tea, and I was 9 at the time, but I enjoyed tea. Not often, just occasionally. But I remember standing at the back of the plane looking out the window with my dad. I just remember walking around a lot on that flight. It was a long flight. It still is a long flight to America from Australia. So I ended up falling asleep. But while I was asleep, this was, again, remember, it's the early 90s. While I was asleep, they invited my brother to the front of the plane where the captains were. So he was invited into the cockpit and got to fly the plane. But I missed out because I was asleep. But that's okay. When we finally got there, I remember not being able to sleep still. The hotel we were at, I think it's still there now. It's across the road and up a little. There was a restaurant downstairs, and the hotel's 3 stories high, I think, and shaped like a horseshoe. And I remember being out on the balcony because my brother was sleeping. I think my parents probably just wanted to go to sleep because it was late when we got there, but I was wide awake. And my dad, he had a video camera and recorded me, and I just would not shut up. I was talking and talking and talking non-stop, just about random things. I remember being fascinated that McDonald's delivered. That was a big thing because back then we didn't really have a lot of places in Australia that did delivery for takeaway food, and so that was quite a novelty to have McDonald's deliver. So there's a video somewhere out there, my parents have it, of me just on the veranda talking. I remember we went to Disneyland, and the first day, or one of the days we were there, it was raining. That's what makes me think it was early in 1994, so like winter time. I remember wearing a denim jacket with iron-on transfers that my mum made, or like parachute pants. That was the fashion back then. But it was wet, so there wasn't many people. And I remember the people, the princesses and characters, they were all undercover, so we got to meet all of them, and I have an autograph book. I think I still have it somewhere. I got all of their autographs and I was very excited. I got photos with them, and that was really special. I remember the rides, and when I went back several years later, they hadn't changed, and some of them I think are still there today. And I remember when we went there, they were still building, I think it was Toontown or something like that, something cartoon related, and I remember we just missed out on it opening. But the ride that I remember was the Star Wars ride and the Michael Jackson cinema experience, the 3D cinema. And it's funny because when I went back in, I think it was 2013, they were still there and it hadn't changed. There's like little flying things, and we had 3D glasses, so my brother, who's 3 years younger than I am, so he would have been 6, I think, would reach out and try to touch the things flying, and that was quite funny. The Star Wars ride was my favourite, I think, and it was still pretty good the last time I went back. I remember going on a submarine ride, which I think is still there, and also Splash Mountain, the log ride, is that what it's called? I think so. A ride that we lined up for, even though I think it was either the rainy day or another day. I think we went a couple of days, but we lined up to go on It's a Small World ride. I don't know if that's what it's called, but that's the song that keeps playing over and over. And I don't know if the ride is actually that long, but for all of us it felt like it went on for hours. It was so boring as a kid to go on that ride. But I also remember I'm pretty sure we went to Universal Studios too. We did. It's different now than what it was back then. They had the tram rides or the trolley rides. I'm not sure what you call them, but the tram rides that go around the back lot or back area. Jaws was there. The Psycho House was there. Bates Motel. A couple of the other things were still there. The clock tower from Back to the Future. They had a few other things. They had, I think it was called Backdraft. It was like a fire set where they had like a scene play out, and I don't know if it was Mad Max, but something similar as well, where there was a lot of water. I think something similar is still there for that. I'm pretty sure there was a Simpsons related thing. And a few other digital, like animated roller coaster type things as well. I don't remember a lot of Universal Studios from back then, but we went more recently, and that had changed quite a lot. I remember the big escalators though. So that was 94. I went to school, that was during the holidays, so it probably was the Christmas holidays before we went back. In Australia, or at least in New South Wales, the school season, because summer is in December and January of the Christmas break, so December, January, February, that's when our longest school holidays are. It's generally 4 or 5 weeks. So our school has 4 terms, and the terms run between January and December. So normally the first term starts January and then breaks around April, and then it's April to July roughly, and July to maybe September, October, and then September or October to December is the 4th term. In between each term you generally have a 2-week holiday, and then at Christmas I think it's 4 or 5 weeks. So it's a little bit different. I know that in America, from what I understand, you have a long summer break and a spring break. But yeah, we have 3 short breaks and then a longer break over summer, but I don't think it's quite as long as overseas. But there's not too much else that I remember for year 4. I'm just trying to think. So yeah, not too much else. Back then I used to do the sports. I was doing dancing, so there's something, I don't know if it's overseas or just in Australia, but it's called physical culture. It's kind of like jazz meets aerobics. It's very strange, but I did that from 94 until 2002, so for quite a long time. I was also doing swimming, and competitive swimming, and for a little while I did self-defense classes, so like karate but not quite. I did do karate for a little while, but I wasn't really into it. But I used to like a lot of the more contact type sports. I played soccer, netball, and football, which is a little different. So yes, I called it soccer, but football, like rugby league, Oz tag, not so much, but like touch football or tackle football, like proper football. I do remember when I was in primary school, it could have been year 4 or year 5, we learned about gold panning and the history of that, and I remember one day we dressed up and I had a big flowy skirt and we acted like we were going gold panning in the school, and that was a lot of fun. In primary school I really used to enjoy making the dioramas, like the scenery, the scenes inside a cardboard box. That was fun. Back then we also used to play marbles, so you had the big marbles and the tiny little minis and then the normal size. that we used to play for keeps, so sometimes I think that's why a lot of things get banned. But we used to play marbles, and handball was another thing. We'd have the king and the queen squares and four squares and play handball. I think as I was leaving primary school, Tarzos, so they're like little Looney Tunes discs, similar to could be Pog. Was it called Pog? It might have been, but little discs that you would collect. Eventually they got banned because kids were trading them all and it was causing like fights and whatever. But yeah, I remember in the canteen you used to have Super Dupers and Sunny Boys, like ice blocks, and you could buy red or green frogs, lollies. I remember the back oval, the no hat, no play rules. Year 5 I was still playing a lot of sports. In year 5 and year 6 I know we went on school camps, and it was for 2 or 3 days, but I can't remember which year we did what, but in primary school I know we went to Canberra and visited Parliament House for one of the years, and I think that was 96 when I was in year 6. And then another year we went to I think it was Narrabeen Sports Camp. I can't remember because I know in high school, earlier in high school we went to bush camp as well, like the Great Aussie Bush Camp I think it was called, up on the highway, but I'm pretty sure that was high school. So like year 8 or year 9 we did that. So I'm thinking it was year 5 or 6 we went to Narrabeen Sports Camp, and we did like the wires, rock climbing, just general camping kind of stuff. And yeah, I can't remember too much else. I think we travelled a little. When I was younger we travelled a bit, particularly when we were living overseas. Before that we would fly back and forth from Cairns to Papua New Guinea. Sometimes it was because that was the closest place we could fly to for medical treatment, or for like hospital if we needed to do something. I remember going to Cairns when I was younger. I remember seeing Fern Gully, the cartoon movie in the cinemas. It's still a cartoon that I really like these days. Other places that I got to travel when I was younger, we got to go to Fiji as well. We'd made some friends in New Guinea that lived in Fiji, so we got to catch up with those people, and that was fun. And we went out to an island out there, and yeah, that was nice. So we went to Hawaii as well, and I think that was the same trip where we went to Disneyland, and we rented a convertible Mustang, as you do when in Hawaii. I remember having to find a pair of shoes on the main street, and back then it was very, very different to how it is now, but the airport hasn't changed much at all. There isn't too much else that I remember from primary school. In primary school, I was vice captain though in year 6. Doesn't really mean too much, but you had flag duty, so you'd have to put the flags up and down, and assembly duty and setting up the microphones and things like that. But I remember doing choir. I still remember a lot of the songs that I learnt. I remember some of my teachers still as well. Some of my teachers, we'd have to go to the library and we'd learn songs. And I remember learning Horse with No Name. For choir we learnt a lot of more show tunes. So we learnt Feeling Groovy. Well, that's not a show tune, but what's Another Opening, Another Show. La Bamba was another song we learnt. In year 6 we did, like at the end of year concert, and I remember we did the Beatles. It was when I was in year 6 in 96, and I had a solo of Yesterday was the song that I sang, and I really enjoyed singing. I still do. I really like singing. So I think I've enjoyed music ever since I was a kid. So after that I went to high school, and I only ever went to one high school. I remember when I was in year 6 though, I did try out for selective schools. I could have gone to some selective schools, but I didn't want to be separated from my friends. So I ended up going to my local high school. But I was still doing swimming, still doing dancing. So I started high school in 97, and that was the first year. And I went to what we call high school. So high school in Australia, at least in New South Wales, because some schools around the country operate differently. So I know, I think it was Queensland where primary school ends in year 7, not year 6. But in New South Wales you go year 7 to year 12, and it's all part of the same school. So you're generally, for the most part, you're 12 when you're in year 7, and you're 17 when you're in year 12, depending on the year that you're born. So that's for the most part of the year, at least that's how old you are roughly, to give you an idea. So year 7, high school was different, obviously, to primary school. In my school they separated the classes by surname, so I wasn't really with a lot of the people that I went to primary school with, and I did make some new friends. Some of them again I do speak to still, but not a lot of them anymore. But it's been a while. It doesn't feel like it, but I finished high school 19 years ago almost. It's crazy to think about that that's been that long, but it's insane. But yeah, 97. So I can't think of too many things that stand out for 97. I remember just feeling so small in such a big school. It was the first time that I'd been to a school that was multiple levels. It's not that common, or it wasn't back then, to have primary schools be more than single story. So that was new. But I remember it was different going from being the biggest kid in the school to some of the smallest kids in the school. We found our groups, I guess, and made new friends. Chose where we wanted to sit. I think it was year 8 the next year. Could have been year 9. I'm pretty sure it was year 8. We went to the Great Aussie Bush Camp and we'd do archery and like a big flying fox thing and just some other like random camping stuff. And even to this day, the Nivea body moisturiser just reminds me of that camp. Just the smell of it, because I think we all took it there. I don't know why. It's just something that stands out. In year 9, I do remember we also went away with school with a few people from the year above us. There wasn't too many of us though. There was probably only like 6 or 7 people from my group that went. Altogether there would have been probably no more than 20 students, but we went camping out near Richmond somewhere in New South Wales. We got lost and ended up near an alpaca farm and had to all climb in a 4-wheel drive, and I went to be kayaking, and that was fun. But we stayed in these wooden, they were like tents, but they were made from wood, so they had the floor, and we slept in our sleeping bags. It wasn't very comfortable, but it was okay. There were showers, so it wasn't too bad. It was fine. But that was fun. We did a few things like that. I remember it was interesting because we hung out with the people who were a year older than us, and they seemed so much older. I'm pretty sure that was year 9. It may have been year 8. They may have been in year 9. I can't remember quite remember, but it could have been 98 actually. In 99, I was in year 9. It's easy to remember because for every year that was the year. So 91 I was in year 1, 92 I was in year 2, and so on and so forth. But year 9 was a bit different. Year 7 and 8 you generally did every class. So you had music and science and English and math. Year 9 you did a few less types of classes, and it was to give you an idea of what you wanted to choose when you were the senior side of high school, so year 10, 11 and 12. You still had to do school sports up until year 10, although in year 10 it was a bit iffy. I remember for school sports, I don't know what year it was, but we did Newcomb ball was one of them. I did table tennis another year. I think they had netball, but I don't think I did netball. They had football, but I didn't do football. They did soccer. I think I did soccer, but that was primary school. But for high school, yeah, Newcomb ball, volleyball. one year I did water polo. I think that was year 8 or year 9. And that's difficult. It's actually quite hard, but I liked it. And being a swimmer, I was used to being in the water, and my shoulders were so broad and my legs were really muscular. But that was it was an interesting experience. We also did like swimming carnivals, and as part of it I ended up getting year 7 I completed the highest grade I could for swimming school, and then the next year I did a life-saving course, so that involved us swimming up and down the pool in full clothes and shoes as part of getting a life-saving award, where you could actually be a lifesaver if you wanted to. So I remember doing that. That would have been year 8, and there wasn't too many of us that did that, but I was already competitively swimming and doing competitions and squad training and stuff, so I was fairly confident in the water. I remember swimming up and down, and at the end of each lap you'd take off a piece of clothing, but you couldn't get out of the pool, so you had shoes, socks, tracksuit pants, then you'd have a t-shirt, a jumper, and your swimming costumes obviously underneath. So it was, by the end of it, I was so tired, but that's the point. It's to see, how you cope with that. We learnt CPR, which it's changed a lot since then, but we did all of the first aid training, and so yeah, that was that. The next year, 99, so in 99, it sounds like such a long time ago. So we still did sports. I was still doing dancing. We'd sort of join groups, like friends groups with different friends, and we had quite a large group, and we all really got along with pretty much everybody. Our school wasn't too bad with like really mean cliques or bullying or anything like that, and it happened, but I kind of didn't put up with anything like that. So I was 14. I remember I signed up to do Duke of Edinburgh award. Essentially you'd go on like camps or hikes, navigating, and you completed a few of those, and you had to keep diaries and do certain things, and you get your Duke of Edinburgh award at the end of it. That went for a couple of years. But the first hike we did was a Bundina to Otford hike. I remember we got to our camping location late, so we'd have to carry our stuff, so our tents and everything. I remember we had to like scale the edge of a cliff almost. And it was really dark, and it was a little wet and muddy, and we had to put our tents up in the dark, and somebody left food out, and the deer in the national park came and ate their food. But we did that, and I think at the end of that year, I know we did 2 more. So I think at the end of that year we also did another hike in the Blue Mountains National Park, and that was difficult. I ended up getting bitten by a bull ant or a fire ant, and my whole legs swelled. there was also leeches, and one of my friends freaked out. Well, we had some salt and you'd put salt on it and they'd just drop off, but that was also part of it. Year 9 was also the year where I had my first kiss, and I ended up getting my first boyfriend as well, which wasn't my first kiss. And that was the year that when it was expected to be the Y2K bug, so when it clicked over to the year 2000, I remember being up on a hill just waiting to see what happened if everything went out, if everything stopped working. Obviously nothing really major happened, but then 2000 came around and I was in year 10. So year 10, in some cases you could leave school, not often, but you had a job or you were starting to study a trade. You also didn't have to do school sports, but I think most people did. So year 10 was the year 2000 for me, and that was the year where the Sydney Olympics were on. But year 10 we went on another Duke of Edinburgh. I think it was the last thing that we did for it, the beginning of the year. And that was to Kangaroo Valley. We went kayaking. It was actually really pretty because in the morning you'd have all the fog and the mist over the water. It was very pretty, but you had to keep your food in a barrel because there was wombats, and for a lot of people wombats sound cute and small, but they're actually quite large. And it was breeding season, or like birthing season, I'm not sure what they call it, but they will charge you, and they are like little tanks, well, big tanks I guess. But yeah, they can be quite aggressive. I remember though, I was in the bush, obviously. I had to go to the bathroom, and I looked up and there was a massive goanna up a tree near me, and those things have claws, like really sharp. I remember thinking, oh gosh, great, this is not ideal. And I looked down for a moment, I looked back up and it was gone. I think that was worse. It was that I didn't know where it had gone, but it was okay. So year 10, I ended up having my first serious boyfriend. So I'd had one before in year 9, but that didn't work out. It just wasn't meant to be. And yeah. What else? The Sydney Olympics happened. I was still doing dancing. I think 99 though, I was part of the NRL Grand Final, pre-game or half-time game thing with dancing. So 2000, I was going to be part of the opening ceremony for the Olympics, but we made it through and we got selected. But then they realised late that by the time the Olympics were on, which was October, I would still be 15, not 16, and I think for liability, like their insurance, it would only cover people 16 and older, so I couldn't do it. That was a bummer. But yeah, what can you do? It's not really much. End of year 10, we started practicing for Rocker Stedford, which is like it used to be televised, but I don't think it was when I was doing it. But schools got together, groups, and did dancing, and movement to music or whatever they would call it, and I remember doing that. So I was one of the main people in that. I did some of the choreographing and played a few of the characters for my school. That was fun. But that was at the beginning of 2001, but we started practicing in 2000. So 2001, I was in year 11, so a senior essentially, the first of the 2 years of senior high school. And we'd chosen the classes that we were going to do, and there was a lot less of us, because you don't have to do year 11 and 12, provided that you either go to, say, TAFE or have a job. So I did, because at that stage I was planning on going to university. So yeah, that was year 11. I remember one morning, so September of that year, I woke up and obviously September 11 had happened in the States, and it was around the time we were doing exams, and it was just really confusing. I remember I woke up and my mum had told me I was having breakfast, and it was just, nobody really knew what was going on, and we'd come to school and people were talking about it. So I remember that. I also remember so other things that happened. We went to movie marathons a bit. So that's where you'd play at least 2 movies. It was either sometimes 2 or 3 movies overnight at the cinemas. So you'd have people taking sleeping bags and pillows. So I did a few of those. 2001 was also the year that I went to the Big Day Out, which is like a really big concert, and I remember being in the mosh pit for Rammstein. It was an experience. I think I was in, I think it was maybe Mudvayne was there as well. That was a year Limp Bizkit was at Big Day Out too, but I wasn't in the crowd for that. We were hanging back. I'd been to the Limp Bizkit concert though. It was one of the best concerts that I'd been to. Oh, that is one thing. In 1997 or 98, I think that's my first concert that I went to, was Kylie Minogue Impossible Princess Tour. But yeah, so 2001 was Big Day Out and Limp Bizkit, and it was around 2001 I started listening to Evanescence and Linkin Park, like most teenagers, but I just really like their music. I still like their music to this day. In early 2001 we also went to Italy with school. Not a lot of us, only some of us. And that was, I don't remember how long we were there for, but it felt like at least a week. It could have been 2. So that was interesting as well. And then it was year 12. So still with the same boyfriend. We ended up dating for 6 years, give or take. But yeah, year 12 sort of came and went. there isn't really much that stands out. We had a year 12 formal. It's common that we'd have a formal in year 10 and a formal in year 12. But it was like the coldest day in November for like years and years and years, and it was raining. It was just miserable. But what do? You can't pick it. So that's kind of my school life story, I guess. I might make another one continuing from here as well, because that's already gone on for a while. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a little bit more rambly because the period's kind of all a bit of a blur. It kind of melts together, but yeah, I might make a third and final series of my post-school life. So if you're enjoying it, please do let me know. But I'm going to put out the candle, and I hope that you're all having a fantastic evening, afternoon, morning, whatever it may be, wherever you are. And I'll see you all in my next video.